Today we're going to be talking about the development, scanning, and color correction process for Golden 120. I know the title says scan, but I can't exactly show you my scanning process because I scan with the camera that I am using to film this video. Plus, getting a scan from the lab involves a color correction process anyway, so am I lying? I use the Unicolor C41 powder kit for development, and then this A6300 and the 7 Artisan 60mm macro lens for scanning the film. This camera is perfect for scanning. Any DSLR or mirrorless camera with 24 megapixels is going to be just fine for scanning film. But I do plan on upgrading this camera sometime this year, probably to the A6700 or the Sony A7C Mark II. The upgrade is mostly going to be for video, but it's just going to be an added benefit for scanning film. And then I use the Viltrox L116T light and the Essential Film Holder to hold the film flat while scanning, and this holder works for both 35mm and 120. Now, this isn't going to be a tutorial by any means. I just had the footage and I wanted to put it together and just kind of show how my process flows. There's plenty of videos out there that can teach you exactly what I'm going to be doing in this video. I pretty much learned everything that I know from YouTube, and all the information's out there. I'll link in the description YouTubers that I have found helpful in the developing and scanning processes, such as Film Friends or Pushing Film. These two YouTubers have a ton of information when it comes to analog photography. But if anybody's actually interested on my take on how I process my film, I guess you'll just ask me in the comments. So all these shots were taken on the Mamiya 645 Pro TL. Went out on a walk in downtown with some of the homies from Cameras and Coffee 916. There's no footage of this because I wasn't planning on doing this YouTube thing or videos at the time, but here we are now. So this is basically just going to be a speed run of my process. I'll put some voiceovers over all the video so I can explain kind of what I'm doing. It's going to be a pretty simple video, but yeah, let's get to it. First, I'm going to do a pre-wash under running water at about 102 degrees just to get the film ready for development. And double check the temperature of the developer just to make sure that it's ready. Now I'm going to begin the developing stage. My developer has been going for about 15 or 20 rolls, so I'm going to need to change that soon, but I extend the time by 2% for every roll that I develop so I can extend the life of it. Give it a few agitations every 30 seconds. And then dump the developer back into its bottle. I do a wash bath between every chemical so that I don't cross-contaminate and potentially ruin other chemicals in the process. I've noticed no adverse effects to my film by doing this. Now for the Blicks, pretty much the same process as the developer. Agitate for every 30 seconds. This one just goes a bit longer. The Unicolor kit has you do this for 6.5 minutes, and I don't add 2% to this. Now the wash bath, which goes for about 3 minutes. I do a rinse before starting that 3 minutes. Your film is non-light sensitive after the Blicks, but I keep the Patterson tank closed throughout the rest of the process. And then lastly, we got the stabilizer. This is just for 1 minute, stir agitation at the beginning, about 30 seconds. Then we're going to pop the tank open, and voila, there are your negatives, ready to hang and dry. I personally use a Kimtech wipe to wipe down the film just to ensure that there's no water spots on the film once it's fully dried. So you can see the process is pretty simple. If I could do this, you can definitely do this. With color film, it's just a matter of timing and temperature. Once you get a good rhythm, you'll be developing film with no problems. There will be mistakes made along the way though, like opening up your development tank before even starting the process. But you'll learn from those mistakes. Now you would basically scan your film with whatever scanning method you use, whether that be DSLR, mirrorless scanning, plus tech, flatbed, whatever. Or if you're Linus and you just have a Fuji Frontier scanner at your place, you'll want to make digital copies of your film to convert. Now we'll take a look at my conversion and color correction process using Lightroom and the Negative Lab Pro plugin. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and upload these scans into Lightroom. Rotate all the images so that they're not upside down. Here I'm taking the white balance dropper to white balance off the edge of the film. I believe this removes the orange cast from the film base and it preps the image to be converted with Negative Lab Pro. Now crop the images. I use the 4:3 aspect ratio for 6:45. You don't need to do this for the conversion process because there's a border buffer built into Negative Lab Pro. Now we'll open up Negative Lab Pro. There's the border buffer I mentioned, which crops the image for the plugin to convert the image properly. So let that do its thing. And boom, positive image. It's that easy. Now just rotate everything so that the images are facing upright. And here I have a few Lightroom presets. The first that I apply is initial scan, lens correction, and slight sharpen. This lens isn't available for automatic correction in Lightroom, so I created my own to remove the distortion and the slight vignetting that I get. And now to get into the nitty gritty, the first color correction process. I have a preset called Kodak that I use on most of my film because I primarily shoot Kodak film. This just adds the tone profile, lab highlights soft, brings down the lights, darks, and black a bit, and brings up the whites a bit. Then I play with my exposure, brightness, and contrast to get the image where I want it to be exposure-wise. You'll see sometimes I'll play with the lights and dark sliders if certain areas of an image are too dark or too bright after getting the exposure where I want it. After that, I'll go down into my white balance. Kodak Gold in 120 usually scans pretty flat initially. So for most of the images, I'll keep the white balance at neutral. Then I'll tweak the tint and temp sliders to get the white balance as flat as possible. Sometimes I'll get real detailed and use the arrows to go up and down by increments of 1 to really dial in the white balance. As I go through these steps, I hit the after before button a lot to compare what the original scan looked like. It gives me a fresher look at the changes I've made throughout the process. Now that I've finished my initial correction, I'll make copies of the images. Negative Lab Pro is a non-destructive plugin, which means that your raw images are still negative technically. So you'll need to make these TIFF copies so that you have a positive image to work with. And you can see here that some files corrupted in the process. That's just something that happens to me every once in a while. Just go in and remove those images from the disk and make some new copies. Now I'll go and select all the new positive TIFF copies and apply my final conversion preset. I guess I'm just giving all the sauce out today. I bring down the highlights, bring up the shadows, bring up the whites, and bring down the blacks. Bring up the vibrance and the saturation a bit. In the tone curve, I lift the shadows for a bit of flatness and bring down the highlights. The adjustments are really minimal in the color curves. I just really use it to get rid of or bring out certain colors in my highlights or shadows. I don't do anything in the color mixer. I also don't use the color grade wheels anymore. I used to adjust these like Jason from Grainy Days in the video where he showed his workflow, but eventually I created my own flow to get my images where I like them. Then I just add a bit more sharpening to help bring out the grain detail. Now I'll go in and tweak the tint and temp again. Negative Lab Pro can lean on the magenta side sometimes. This can be corrected in the plugin before making the positive copy, but I still go back into my positive and correct the color. First, I'll adjust the tint to remove too much magenta, then I'll bump the temp to the warm side to see how much warmer it makes the image. I prefer the image to be on the warmer side, but not too far from the original conversion. I just make small incremental changes by using the arrow keys up and down, but if you need something more fine-tuned, you can hold Option and move the arrows to go by 1 increments instead of 5. And here's a before and after of the conversions and the final color correction. This video was pretty cool. It's not exactly the content that I always want to create, but it's nice that I can show you that it could be done and you could save a few bucks in a slightly expensive hobby. I already have the footage for the next video. I was going to incorporate it in this video, but it was going to be way too long and the topics are different, so that'll be coming in about 2 weeks. I dig the schedule that I have right now. It's uploading every 2 weeks, just so I don't burn myself out just starting this. But there's just so much footage that I can make and that there is being made currently that weekly uploads are probably gonna come a lot sooner than later. Last weekend there was a camera swap here in SAC, so if you were at that, shout out to you. If you picked up some new gear, or maybe even your first analog camera. Also, if you're in SAC or any of the surrounding areas and you wanna hang out with some photographers and chat over some coffee and then go for a little photo walk, go ahead and follow the Cameras and Coffee 916 Instagram page. And that's where you'll be able to keep up to date when we have those meets there monthly. But there have been some changes that have been made to my arsenal over the past few days. I was eyeing a camera at that swap meet and I ended up not being able to get it because another photographer that I know ended up picking it up, and he originally just wanted to play with the camera a bit and then he would contact me when he was ready to let it go, and he just so happened to hit me up that night, so we met the next morning and I ended up picking that up. So this beautiful Mamiya 645 will unfortunately be leaving. If you want to see the images that I have created on this camera, you can go ahead and follow my Instagram. But we are going to be saying goodbye to this camera. It is currently listed and I'm taking offers locally or wherever. But the new camera, I've been wanting this camera for a very long time. It's not fully set up the way that I want to have it set up currently. I need to get the lens that I am looking for this and a few other little things, but welcome the Pentax 6.7 to the family. Very excited to take some shots with this. I will be going out of town this week/weekend with the homie Robin, and so we'll be taking this bad boy out. So I'm looking for the 105 2.4. The photographer that sold me this camera, he had this lens at the meet, so he put this little kit together for himself, but he's letting me borrow this lens until I find the 105 2.4. This is the 150 2.8, so it's very tight. It's very tight. For me, I shoot mostly 50 mil, and so this is very up close. You know, I can't even focus on the camera where it stands right now. So yeah, so we'll take this thing out when me and Robin head out of town this week and make some shots on it, see what happens. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end it there. I hope you guys liked this one, and peace.